For the teachings, homage to Shakyamuni Buddha, page 2.
Dumbo Jumde de Shemo Jumbo Yamo Gobe Sanye Dewa Jalu Dembo Dewa Ide Jembo Jewu Du Palo Yuwa Lana Mewa Lana Mena Dumbo Sanye Jumde de Jewa Shaja Tumba La Jaze Shudu Gyazu Jewu To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the full destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the worlds, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent, destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise in, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. with the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, three worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one gone to vestments I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that Dharma which pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community of authentic virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. Thus is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the full of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. The Heart Sutra in Tibetan, page 4. Sharibu Jandu Sampa Sampa Shimpu Dita Shirangi Varandu Samola Labara Chau Dene Jomdene Tingi Dele Shinde Jandu Sampa Sampa Shimpu Baba Shenese Onju La Lesu Shichawa Jine Lesu Lesu Riki Hu Dede Shina Dede Shinde Dita Jugi Tempa Shindu Shirangi Varandu Samola Jeba Jade Deje Shimpa Nanka Jesu Hira Degi Degi Sada Deva Shere Dadi Bola Jandu Zampa Zampa Jimbo Baba Shere Panju Namjidan Deve Kuru Deta Pada Mita Mama Saji Bechi Den Yirante Chonde Deji Sumba Mombara
Page 11 in English. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of monks and bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn, wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond?
Thus he spoke,
And the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formation, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eye up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment.
therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequal and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, for there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayata gati gati paragati parasamgati bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering, the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One.
아니 장주sem을 자세 장주sem발로 쥐발로 러베게 게임에다 간대지 보고 열에서는 르덴다 셈데니 열에서 르덴다 셈데니 나네 내가 저다 간다 르덴 장주셈 유라 깨버 채워다 장주sem을 러버 채 르덴에다 간대지 보래서는 아니 가진 다된 먼저 대시디 야대 열에서
Last week, we began the presentation on what it is for the precious human body to be the physical support for the generation of bodhicitta and then for the practices of the Bodhisattva. So the Bodhicharya Avatara, this text concerned with the generation of bodhicitta and the training and practice of the heirs to the Buddha is concerned with us that just this. And there are two supports. There's the physical support and the mental support. And the physical support for the generation of bodhicitta and for the trainings in the conduct of the bodhisattva is the precious human embodiment.
아니 직박에 장죽심 아니 수수율 러비나 러비하게 뒤에 차상 상고 아니 내게 유배 고급 상고절에다 들으니 다른 뒤뒤 추수도 마다 아니 장죽심을 내버도 럽도가 지기 장죽심을 럽을 쪼다 가오이와 쪼이와 대바이와 데이터는 몇선만 가오 친구거네 아니 수수들이 장교선을 러브이 뉴스를 깨버 지기 사람들이 좀 예배 토네 아니 나도 죄 예마다 셰바이나 아니 나도 죄 제바의 표현 친구 럽 친구 여래서 그렇지.
So the fourth verse, so hard to find the ease and wealth whereby the aims of beings may be gained. If now I fail to turn it to my profit, how could such a chance be mine again? Page 31, if you have this text. The meaning of these verses then is essentially that now we are very fortunate. This is a very supportive moment for us in our endeavor to train in the way of the Bodhisattva, to generate bodhicitta and engage in the conduct of the heirs of the Buddha. The conditions are supportive for this practice. And so now at this very moment, we mustn't waste the opportunity that we have, but in actuality train in producing bodhicitta and generate an appreciation for it, faith in it, enthusiasm for it, and commit ourselves by saying, I will train in the way that the heirs to the Buddha have. I will produce bodhicitta. And if this is the motivation underlying the teacher as he teaches and the listeners as they listen, then it will be a very beneficial moment for us.
대바이게 저거 주시는 대조 추적이 내가 아주 루이들 상대받아서 나는 루이들 가서 다 전부 이봐서 모두 제시들 아니 대조 추적이 무슨 소리야 그래서
And here, this basis for the generation of bodhicitta is the physical embodiment of a human being. And as it is presented in the Lamrim as well as in the Bodhicharya Avatara, in order to listen to the Dharma contemplate the Dharma and meditate upon the Dharma, there are conditions that are required, and especially the condition required is a human embodiment. And the human embodiment, especially with the 18 or the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments. And we enumerate these 8 leisures and 10 endowments for the purpose of recognizing the value of a precious human embodiment. So it is an introduction so that we can identify how it is that the precious human embodiment is the basis for this beneficial practice. Now, last week we did go through the 8 leisures, but we'll review them again because if you're familiar with them, it's beneficial. The first leisure is the leisure of not holding to wrong views. That means that we are not opposed, we do not reject the authority of the Buddha and the Triratna, the triple gem. We have faith in the Buddha and the Buddha Dharma. If this weren't the case, if we lacked faith in the Buddha and the Buddha Dharma, then the very means for the generation of bodhicitta would be inaccessible to us. But this isn't the case. We do have faith in the Buddha and the Buddha Dharma. And so this difficult obstacle to that is holding to wrong views, does not apply to us. And in that respect, we have this condition, this supportive condition in place already. The second leisure is the leisure of not having been born an animal or in the animal realm. And instead, we find ourselves with the beneficial basis of a human embodiment. If instead we were born in the animal realm, we would lack the intelligence necessary to discriminate and practice the Dharma. Though the sound Dharma may be in the air, we wouldn't be able to comprehend it as animals. We wouldn't be able to comprehend it. We wouldn't be able to express ourselves, and we wouldn't be able to communicate in any way regarding the Buddha Dharma. Instead, we find ourselves with this human embodiment and the native intelligence of human beings. And that comes from having in the past maintained ethical discipline, so that now we have a precious human embodiment with its native intelligence. As an animal, the animals find themselves with the misfortune of being unintelligent, of being stupid and unable to advocate for themselves. So they end up being used as beasts of burden and entirely incapable of dispelling their own agonies.
아니 배 로 주정한 예수님도 되는데 세 말하는 건데 세 세야가 오늘 또 동해당 되게 또 동해대가 되는 세 소야만도 추기 제약을 전부다 퇴야 그거를 요 말해서
Worse is the suffering even of the pretas, and we have the leisure of not being born as pretas. In the preta realm, the pretas experience inconceivable suffering. For 10, 15, 20 years, they may go without finding food and hungry all the time. And if it is the case that they can't find food to feed themselves, they certainly can't find the Dharma.
어떻게 다른 시거든 녀와를 깨는 최고다 되다 발판이잖아. 다 찬이 차와다 장외 동행이 숨겨 지마 두어진 내를 막을 최기 나 되게 말을 되게 요 말을 제가 내리 녀와를 맞이하고 이다를 맞이하고 모두 미루토가 되는 병원부터 아니 대조의 때 지발지직 차기 어려서
And then worse still is the suffering of beings in the hell realm, and we are free and with the leisure of not having been born or not being presently born in the hell realms. In the hell realms, put aside any possibility of hearing the Dharma. The hell beings are incapable of changing their constant suffering as it is to suffer from heat, extreme heat and extreme cold. They cannot change those conditions and suffer. And they certainly are unable, have never had the opportunity to hear the Dharma. And so we have avoided a rebirth as a preta, avoided the rebirth of a hell being. And so in that way, we have these two leisures as well.
아니 최고 다 퇴사해봐. 아니 지금 최대의 라마 계획신이 이어가 되는 위해서는 너무 있게 되어 있어서 대화가 대화해서
Now, if one is born a human being, there still may be factors lacking that prevent such an individual from hearing the Dharma, from practicing the Dharma. One may be born as a human being, but born in a place with no freedoms, or a place where the Buddha Dharma is absent. And in such conditions, one would not be exposed to the Buddha Dharma. But this does not apply to us. And so we are with this leisure too, of being born in a place with freedom, where there is the Buddha Dharma, and where there are spiritual mentors as well. So in this respect too, we have this leisure.
아니 지금 밖에 지금 저를 배견도 나와다 아니 지금 사람을 되게 오무거든 교육 받아 아니 되게 공부하다 되게 깨봐 있는 저 뒤에서 뭘 깨네 되게 말에 나라도 공부하는데 공부하다 샤워되는 많이 봐 아니 지금 저 남주 추고 돌아야 가시 여봐 대신 여봐 되게 요새가 사실 깨되어 있는데 아니 미국은 많이 봐 배워 차대요 그래서
we also have the leisure of having been born in a place where the Buddha Dharma exists. We haven't been born in a primitive society where it's absent, or in a society where critical views critical of the Dharma are dominant. We also don't have any disabilities that prevent us from making meaningful our exposure to the Buddha Dharma. We don't have these disabilities and no intellectual deficiencies that prevent us from appreciating the Dharma. So we are able to appreciate it. We have our native intelligence that allows us to do so. So in these respects too, not being born in a primitive society and having our faculties, we have these leisures as well.
semba 저도 계기가 마지도 오늘 뭐 동남하고 그 두루스는 최년 마토와제 두스가 아니 타마 시가를 내린 아니 동행이 나는 최년 마토와차 안들이 차거래 제가 다 깨버려 미리 깨버려 상하지 최고가 내 차대가 해서는
Also, we have the leisure of not being presently born as long-lived gods. These gods, long-lived in a fortunate realm, still do not have the opportunity we have to be exposed to the Buddha Dharma. Instead, they contentedly and for long lives of many thousands of years, where everything they need is supplied to them, experience no discomfort, and so they have no real exposure to the suffering that would lead to appreciation of the Buddha Dharma. And then at the moment of their death, then just as they are passing away, they experience the dissatisfaction and then they fall to a lower realm. So better than to be a long-lived God is to be born a human being.
어떻게 나만한서 미콤바 개파 트레니 다 대화다 대말 라고 대화다 제가 두들이 지천의 두들 창기가 수수이 안지 두들만 다들 미세로 때마도 있나냐 뭐뭐 차도 미콤바스 최최로 두들 꼬라마고 왔어요. 제가 나만한서 내가 지당 지천의 미콤바 개리가 먼저 제대로였어. 이내만한서 최반다 양기 수수 밀레게 저유서 몰레게 양 수수고 동안도 제 맞이고 있는 너무 두두도 도셔고 미만이면 제 도셔요. 제가 비디오도 두두도 돌아도 얘가 차고 열어서
So these 8 leisures, we are free and endowed with these leisures. We have escaped a situation or circumstances where these leisures are absent. We're free from that bondage of not having the leisure to appreciate the Buddha Dharma. So these conditions are presently fulfilled for us. And that leaves then, having indicated these eight leisures, and that we have these leisures, that leaves for us then this moment when we have an opportunity, but time is passing, and it's incumbent upon us to make the most of the opportunity and leisure that we have.
도시 다들 대화계 창사를 다들 저번 주에 랑고는 창고야 나타 신이 보는 창고야 나치는 주요의 송.
So those are the 8 leisures. Then follow 10 endowments. These 10 endowments are 5 personal endowments and 5 impersonal endowments.
뭐야? 나랑도 보는 창고야 나타 가서는 다 미니 마찬가지로 다는 하는 밀 차단 밀 차단 양보실래요. 디디어스. 아니 유즈 개발서는 뭐 아니 뭐가 유 개설다 최유설은 뭐래 개발서 니거든. 그래서 아니 오버 상황에서 오버 아주 최예 도약이 남쇼다. 아니 지금 거기 시럽이 차단 상도 요인들 오버만 상황을 오버 상황 여러 제단 나도 랑군 상황 된 순제 레타 말로 봤을 레타 말로 봤을 때 뭐 맞아 그 최예래 아니 이거 참여들 제법 많이 봐. 내가 파세바 마세바 다시 뭐 세바 아니 기두기 데이트 예 제바 아니 게노마기 이중한테 되게 이거 친구들 참여들 이거들 싸고 많이 봤어. 어디에 먼저 참도 열어서
제가 아니 나빠대 가르래
참여만 한번에 나빠 타마 게노마 순지 봤어. 게노마 요와 게노마다 게노마를 이중 게노마 매버서를
만들어 봐.
이중 무슨 뭐 이거 따오다 이중 매버서를
매버서라니 세바.
내가 생각하는 무슨 들어.
로스.
어디 제품 들어.
로스. Then the 5 personal endowments means the 5 endowments that depend upon that are satisfied or completed in one's own body, and that is the first of those 5 is to be born a human being with the full body of a human being. The second is not to have been born to have been born in a central land. So the first is a human body. The second is to have been born in a central land. A central land is a place where the Buddha Dharma is. And the third is to be born with complete faculties. That means to have the ear and the faculty to comprehend the Dharma, and then the native intelligence to understand it. So those are three conditions, personal conditions. And then the fourth is not to have or not to be responsible for any of the 5 heinous crimes. And those 5 heinous crimes are killing one's mother, killing one's father, killing an arhat, dividing the sangha, and taking the life of bhikshuni. So those are the first 4. And the 5th personal endowment is faith in the teachings of the Buddha. That means faith in the Tripitaka, or the 3 baskets of the Buddha's teachings, and faith in the 3 higher trainings. It is faith in the Buddha Dharma. And so we have these 5 personal conditions satisfied.
아니 담제 때 봐서 최대 얘기 라마 계획신이 여봐 라마 요 계획신이 여봐 아니 템바 산제게 템바 단단내 대여봐 아니 템바 템바내 대여봐 텔 제수 주고 산제 템바들 제수 주는 로미에 여봐지 아니 텔 시에는 닝자와스 아니 제 최배 제는 배 펜배 삼바가 제는 병도 삼배 오면 최신 최로고 여봐 어디가디
The 5 impersonal endowments are, first, having been born at a time when the Buddha has come to the world. There are times when the Buddha has not come to the world, and times when the Buddha has come to the world. Our time is one in which the Buddha has come. The second is the Buddha came and the Buddha also taught. So the teachings of the Buddha are present. And along with the teachings of the Buddha, so too are spiritual mentors and gurus who convey the Buddha Dharma. So that is the third impersonal condition, that the Buddha Dharma remains. And then 4th is that there are followers of the Buddha Dharma. And 5th, in this world, there is love and consideration for others. These are the 5 impersonal endowments.
롱아동은 달로니 동아제 타스다는 친자보다 단다 남마다 가디어서 산제 지금도 준비 개와 세비 아니 맞으기 개와들라 계산기 개와들 밀라 준비 개와서 준비 개와서 산게 지금도 준비 개와이나 준비 개와서 아니 그런 최순도 때마다 다들 내려와 다들 그 최순의 롱아동 내기 위해서 롱아동은 어디다 되는 게 되어와 어디다 산게 지금도 준비하세요.
This first impersonal endowment, that this presently is the time when a Buddha has come to the world, describes the eon in which a Buddha comes, and a Buddha comes and teaches when, in this case, as the lifespan of human beings continues to decline. And once the Buddha comes, the Buddha's teachings are said to remain 5,000 years, and now 2,500 years or so has passed, and now that leaves the same 2,500 years or so remaining. And so this is presently an eon when a Buddha has come. And so it is called the fortunate eon of the lamp or the illumination, describing the good fortune of this eon. For it to be an eon when the Buddha has come, it is called this the eon that is like a lamp, or the eon that is a lamp of illumination. And 5,000 years, these teachings are said to last. 2,500 or so have passed.
아니 라마 친구들 배기 열에 되네 최신이 기계를 잠을 더 강가 용비였다. 제가 뒤에 오늘 최대 최순 안돼 되듯이 개와서 뭐라 차대요. 저는 최 엄마도 딱 그거 좀 보이는 최 벤디다 파티를 쇼도 그때와 그냥 최 라마의 대수용 최순 지와 제가 당하고 최순 라마 예바다 최 되니 라마 예바들이 The
second impersonal endowment is that the Buddha Dharma has been taught. For instance, here in this country, periodically high lamas visit and teach, and also there are geshes and other spiritual mentors who are available and teach here. And so in this way, the Buddha Dharma is taught, the Buddha Dharma is spoken. In Tibet, in the past, the Tibetans had to invite pundits from India in order for the teaching to be spoken to them. So here now we have teachers, the Buddha Dharma is spoken, and so in that respect, the second impersonal endowment is had by us.
어떻게 다 때만 내봐서 다 때만 내봐서니까 지난 대신만 거 다이는 지난 때만 내봐서 나는 수수수 가서 수수수 때만 내만에 다 단다 디나는 때만 내봐서지 수수기 줄어 때만 내만에 찍고래서 내가 말한 수수기 산지 때만 그러나도 용것 아래도 차샤를 산지 때만 최 때니 마음 가리는 마기는 수수기 최디 냠내 맞으나 아니 수수 때문에 내요 말했어. 수수그 저 장주 생각도 아니 거기 장주 동의가 장주 생각도 배 대부도 뭐 냠내 지기도나 수수를 상기 때문에 내요 와. 수수그 냠내 맞잖아. 아니 수수를 상기 때문에 내요 말했어. 때문에 내봐서리 가서 수수수 줄어 때문에 내만을 찍고 해서
The third impersonal endowment is the state of the teachings of the Buddha Dharma remaining or abiding or being present. There are various explanations for just how to understand this particular impersonal endowment, but generally we can understand it in terms of each person individually and the state of the Buddha Dharma remaining or abiding depending upon each individual, insofar as that individual has or has not generated an understanding of the Buddha's teachings and then practiced it actively. So in the United States, there are teachers. There are many teachers who are here and they do teach the Dharma. But if individuals aren't actively practicing, then it can't be said for those individuals that the Buddha Dharma remains. Whether or not the Buddha Dharma remains or abides or is present depends upon whether or not an individual in their mind has the Buddha Dharma abiding and present. And so if individuals take up books about bodhicitta and emptiness and study them and then practice based upon them, then the Buddha Dharma is present and remains in them. If they don't practice, then it can't be said that the Buddha Dharma remains or is present for them. So it all comes down to whether or not the practice is present in the mind of each individual.
그 대바유니 로전 지도유니 지투니 이제를 레버이나 아니 주주 배 팬도고 콜라 로동체는 장주선 귤레기야요 장주선 로비야요 장 친구 냠에 차단 장아요와 대나시진 땜버버게 찔러 내되는 수수가 냠에 맞나 아니 때 수수 땜버데 만내 버와 어디나시 요래서
take the various texts available to us. For instance, the Bodhicharya Avatar, this present text. If a student is completely indifferent to it, if an individual, if a person is unable to study it, entirely indifferent to it, then the Bodhicharya Avatar is not important to them. It is not beneficial to them. If, on the other hand, there is someone for whom the Bodhicharya Avatar is very important, and they take it to heart, and they do practice it, then the benefits are tremendous. So the practice of bodhicitta, the generation practice of the 6 perfections, all of those benefits are available if one is interested. If not, it can't be said that the Buddha Dharma remains for that person.
왜 따뜻한 될 시버리 될 제수 주고스다 젤라 제수 주고스도 배나 소달기 도바이나 아니 소달기 도바 라마 캠보도 라마 고만 도바 지금 만나네 도바사도 깨와이나 아니 도바들 제수 주고 요러와 옛날에 장주선배 도바를 로정체 배나다 제정도 준주도 만 라마 고마도 제마도 셰네 마셰 마도 마도 셰오도 아니 지주로 장주선배 도바 냠도 랜다다 도바 줄에 깨버는데 여바인은 장주선배 도바 내봤어 지나지 나도 도바 지과로 왔어다 아니 지과에 가나도 빌어 가지 라마 고마도 만나는 들려냐면은 장주선배 도바 나와다 장주선 줄에 깨버는데 여바인은 아니 산지기 때문에 제수 주고 왔으니 나도 상대 요래서
And the 4th impersonal condition is the condition of their being followers of the Buddha Dharma. And their being followers means, for example, take the pratimoksha vows. It means for there to be a transmission, an active transmission and inheritance between gurus and their disciples of the pratimoksha vows. And each time a pratimoksha vow is bestowed, and then the vow is actively taken up in the mind, on the mind stream of the disciple, that new generation of the pratimoksha vow is the very instance of the condition of their being followers of the Buddha Dharma being satisfied. And so it is also the case for the conferral, the bestowing of bodhisattva vows, the generation of bodhicitta, and that active transmission from guru to disciple. And it's also the case for the Vajrayana with the Vajrayana vows. And when the elder spiritual mentor bestows a bodhisattva vow, and the bodhisattva vow is actively and anew generated in the mind of the disciple, this is the instance of their being followers of the Buddha Dharma.
아니 대나신진 최되는데 콜레 남줄에 깨버체 어디도 시행을 제대로 온게 최되면 거래스 시행을 제대로 온게 최되면 매나 아니야 최내발 내버체 연구만 지나 나도 비슷한 상대 요래서.
And the 5th impersonal endowment is the presence of tender love and consideration for others. When spiritual mentors bestow the bodhisattva vows, teach on bodhicitta, teach the Buddha Dharma, they do it out of tender love and consideration for others. If there were no such love for others, then there wouldn't be the transmission of the Buddha Dharma. And so it is because of the love of spiritual mentors for their disciples that the Buddha Dharma is transmitted.
나자르 네도 나자르 여바이나 나자들 여바다 아니 나자들 저 두야기 거기 나자들 교배치도 서로 도선다 무유여바다 튕지 셔바가 참아시 아니 단이 암지면은 아니 꼭 튕지 셔바 있는 뱅기 말와 되나시 아니 저랑들 즉 수술을 타면 제 차단 상대에는 아니 배 시행이 남아 계획이 인지 오면은 단이들 맞으나 아니 튕지 마상 제가 봐서 뒤에 말이 많아도 튕지 차단 상대에 그래서
And just to make this really understandable, the conditions are as if, for example, you were sick, so there was an illness you had, and there was a treatment out there of some kind, and you had the means to pay for treatment if you knew what it was, and you also had supportive conditions where you could recuperate after the treatment or during the treatment. If all of that was available, but the physician was unavailable, then it wouldn't do you any good, the savings you had and the other conditions that would allow you to heal and recover after or during treatment. And so that would be as if the physician weren't there and weren't present and concerned. But this isn't the case. The teachers of the Buddha Dharma are present and tenderly concerned and loving. And therefore, all 10 of these personal and impersonal endowments are present for us. And so one is now maybe compelled by an awareness of these leisures being leisures had by us, and these endowments being true endowments present for us. That is, we have supportive conditions. We now have an opportunity for decisive commitment to making something of the opportunity. So now that we identify the precious human embodiment as the basis for taking advantage of or actually engaging in the Bodhisattva practices, we have this basis now. Now, how is it that we will actively take up the essence of this opportunity? And the Bodhicharya Avatara provides an instruction on how it is to be done. And it does it generally, and then it does it particularly. It does it through each chapter, and then also generally speaking. Last week we began this section. I spoke on it, but we'll return to it again now. And the Bodhicharya Avatara in each chapter describes just how it is that we take advantage of the essence of this opportunity. And so in this Shastra, it is done that way. It is done in a chapter by chapter basis by first making clear that the Shastra itself presents the way, a means of practice for individuals of superior capacity, but it's individuals of superior capacity on the basis of the practices for those of inferior and average capacity too.
제가 다 기부순기 람세디 만화도다 달린 최 님불된 최 아니 수술 캡산래 님불래야 저디 들라니 내나 좀 지중 숨이어와 어디 기부순세 어디 숨거래서
Important then are these individuals of three varying capacities, of superior capacity, average capacity, and inferior capacity, because it is by looking at or identifying how each individual can take the essence of their fortunate human embodiment that the topic is arranged.
뭐든지 딱 기부 춤을 넘나 없어지 기부 춤을 넘는 가래스나 아니 계산하도 다 된조 뭐소와 된조 아니 된체와 녀가 숨이와 아니 네가 나다 치워입니다 공부 아니 네가 레주되게 남자 오 되돌아 도선 고선 labne 제디 아니 기부 춤을 넘나 lab스 그래서
Beginning with the individual of lesser or inferior capacity, we spoke about it last week. The meditations on the importance of a precious human embodiment, the difficulty of coming to have a precious human embodiment, meditations on impermanence and impending or imminent death, and on karmic causality. These are all topics within that, organized within the section for individuals of inferior capacity.
오예 다들 기부 춤을 그렇고 춤을 밀다고 가랬으나 맞아 밀리 디키니 다 이거 춤쇼래야 가서 일단 이거 제춤 등수나는 다 이거 춤쇼래 디디 아니 다 맞아 이거 춤쇼래는 아니 갈래라고 하나 다 밀리 디네네 아니 맞아 다 제와 치마 양조 내 손으로만 좀 먹어 대돌래 깨야게 남을 로비와 인도 아니 기부 춤을 쓰람다 그래서 그래서
Now, why would we call a path for inferior individuals? Why do we describe it as inferior? It's only described as inferior insofar as individuals behaving in this way make something of the opportunity, do take the essence of the opportunity, but take the least of the essence compared to others. That is, they make the most of the opportunity insofar as they prevent themselves from, in future lives, taking rebirths in unfortunate realms. So they won't take rebirths in the hell realms and preta realms in the animal realm. But that is as far as they taking the essence of this opportunity.
기부 춤을 못 셴바셔와 다 기부 등선다 만족이 님볼래야 다 미를 디키네 아니 다 님볼 딜레테스 야가시 등어스 렘바이나 아니 연조 코알레 깨와네 먹어와 아니 코알레 타르바 체베기 체도라 아니 남들 갈라고서는 대시다 아니 덴데 남자를 납네 아니 코알레 들어와다 세딜은 세치마 코알레 깨 먹어와 차서나 아니 님부 등등네 말해서
The path for individuals of average or middling capacity is said to be average and not inferior, said to be middling because individuals take just a bit more, make a bit more of the opportunity than did the inferior individuals. They make of this precious human embodiment, they make possible their own liberation. They make it possible that they needn't take rebirth in samsara again. This is what they can do by using the essence of the human embodiment. And this is done through an awareness of the teachings of the Buddha having to do with the four truths of the noble ones, pratitya samuppada, and the means for achieving liberation from samsara.
뭐든지 다 되는 다 주주 네가 아니 대과침 붙여인들 다 대과침을 하나 넣어줘야 되나 아니 기부 침을 하나 넣어줘 기부 침부 다 걸에 기부 침부 세워도 가서나 랑이 되는데 다 랑이 코알을 줘야지 그 개침부 맞지가지 그 뭐가지 다 신선제 탐지 코알을 격 투야가 치도라 아니 랑이 세상과 자주주도 sem장 아니 sem제 공네 아니 지금 산지지 고만 토바제디 아니 기부 침묵을 남스 어두스 멘탈이 요레스 아니 남는 라베데라 장주 셈 다또 장주 셈이여와 전화 전주 선다 공부 전주 선다 라고 라게 넘디라고 그랬어. 아니 도저히 산지기 고방 토바지 그랬어. 아니 되는 선지기 되면도 랑이 되는 마산도 생기 되는 상황이다. 아니 콜렉티브 지불을 하는 시스템을 그래서
This Shastra, the Bodhicharya Avatara, is concerned with individuals of greatest capacity. These individuals are said to be of greatest capacity because they put aside their own ends, their own purpose. They're indifferent to their own purpose, whether or not they personally are liberated from samsara or not. They're indifferent to that, and all consumed by protecting and bringing about the welfare of all other sentient beings. And that is their practice. And so the name given to them is individuals of greatest capacity. And it is through the two forms of bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta and relative bodhicitta, that such individuals are able to bring about the welfare of sentient beings and the state of Buddhahood. And so their dedication, their commitment is to sentient beings, other sentient beings, and they are not narcissistically self-involved, and so they are said to be beings of the greatest capacity.
뭐든지 딱 맞을 준주 거스고 딱 준주 비 아니 가레스나 딱 제세 장주 생각이 좁아 딱 간데스라 그래. 아니 자주 생각 좁아 랍나 간데래. 제 가르라고 해서 딱 자주 장주 생각이 좁아가 나는 쪼디 아니 친구고 냐네 버진 주고 냐네 되디 아니 버진 주고 남을 로주디 아니 딱 준주 시자 쪼디 차대요. 그래서
The present Shastra, the Bodhicharya Avatara, is concerned with the practices of the Bodhisattva, how one is to practice as a Bodhisattva does, what one is to do in their practice of a Bodhisattva, how to do it and what is to be done. And the main practice for a Bodhisattva is the practice of the 6 perfections. So the way in which the 6 perfections are to be undertaken is the subject of the Bodhicharya Avatara.
뭐든지 딱 근데 이거 뭐 준주고 마시도 뭐 버리는 시험도 담보 장주생이 편을 가진 시험을 해서 주어들에 뭐서 제가 다디 아니 장주생을 로 정화라 장주생을 아니 프로와이게 시도라 장주생을 로도 장주생을 가고도 프로와이게 시도라 담보 장주생이 편을 시험도 담보도 시험을 장주생이 편을 시험을 아니 프로와이게 시도 시험을 해서
So in the ordinary sequence of teaching the Bodhicharya Avatara, one begins by describing the benefits of bodhicitta, the qualities of bodhicitta. Why begin with a description of the good qualities of bodhicitta? In order to engender respect, appreciation, and enthusiasm for bodhicitta. In order to do that, one begins with a consideration of bodhicitta and its benefits.
뭐든지 다 근데 이거 단다 공부 시험은 나신진 다 단다 기부 충분다 자주 쌤들 정화라 아니 이게 원도 다 거기에 네 기부 충분다 남지 기부 충분다 되게 남 원을 넣고 어디 딱고 시대는 없이 이 강화다 거기 자주 쌤들 넣고도 정보 빼나가지고 라기 귤에 장주기 쌤도 귤에 깨버 쳐봐도 늘 채워인데 아니 빼나가지고 빼도 차샤고 있나 가르쳐서나 다 빼나가지고 어제 또 뭐마기나 콜로지 제부스로와 배다 대상 공부도 친구 라마도 친구도 되게 쉬고 요이나 나 내가 되게 쉬고 요이나 한번 내가도 아니 지도 상마도 소 자리체 아니 배고야다 유제다 개인 게임도 파면서 되게 그룹지로 어디나시 아니 장주고 있으면 너무 정화 제발라 너무 개인 이거 장화데 시고 위에인데 아니 이거 샤를 리우도 이거 샤발해서 새로 사서 그렇지
Now, as I mentioned earlier, individuals of lesser and average capacity, the practices for such individuals makes up the basis still for the practices of beings of greatest capacity. It's a foundation for them. And now as we prepare to practice in such a way that bodhicitta is generated in the mind, just as in the past before, well, in the past we talk about wheel-turning monarchs, and if one were inviting a wheel-turning monarch to one's country or to one's capital, you'd prepare the way, prepare accommodations for hosting such a significant person, and you do this by cleaning and making everything presentable, and also by making sure that there was nothing that would interfere with the travel of the Chakravartin. Now we obviously speak of presidents and things, but in any case we prepare for their arrival, make things clean and presentable. Similarly, the second chapter of the Bodhicharya Avatara is concerned with confession, which is a purification and preparation. Now, once one has the conditions, one has brought together the conditions for bodhicitta, then comes the responsibility of holding bodhicitta, preserving bodhicitta, maintaining bodhicitta. So one has the conditions for bodhicitta, for its generation, and now one is intending to generate it and preserve it. So then the third chapter of the Bodhicharya Avatara is taking hold of bodhicitta, as it's translated here. And then once one has generated bodhicitta, so that it does not decline, so that it remains firmly, one must rely upon carefulness or conscientiousness. If one is not conscientious, then whatever has been generated won't last, and so conscientiousness is of utmost importance. And that is chapter 4. And for the successful practice of the 6 perfections, as they are presented in later chapters, they're only possible, they can only be effectively practiced if one has vigilance and presence of mind, or mindfulness. And so vigilance and mindfulness are crucial for successful practice of the 6 perfections, as they're described later in the Bodhicharya Avatara. And so chapter 5 is dedicated to vigilance and mindfulness, or vigilant introspection. And then these perfections that follow in this order. Chapter 6 is dedicated to the perfection of patience. Chapter 7 is dedicated to the perfection of diligence. Chapter 8 to the perfection of concentration, or meditative concentration, and chapter 9 to wisdom. So they are presented in this order sequentially.
아니 시행가 동에치도 지배기 냠네 개벌 뭐왜 생각보다 아니 지배기 냠네 개벌 땡겨서
And the final chapters, chapter 10, dedicates the merit that has accumulated through the previous chapters, the virtue connected with the practice of the 6 perfections, so that it isn't lost and so that it may be dedicated to the well-being of others. Dedication as a means is described extensively in chapter 10.
어떻게 다 되네 타만 저 냠낸 제벌되는 달 산제기 사기로와 산제기가 제부 산제기 유대되기 난 누구베고라 땡그래서
And then the final result, which is the state of Buddhahood, the qualities of that result, the attributes of that result are also described in chapter 9.
어떻게 대단다 지시에 준주고 지나다 지시도 되레스타 루수수고 쉐바자바들라 아니야 sabject 마와라 sabject 니용도 자주심기 표현 삼바타 아니 생계이 저벌로 루트서 sabject 니용도
So in this way, we've covered generally the 10 chapters in the way that they present how one takes advantage of the essence of human embodiment, the human embodiment. And then chapter by chapter, this is presented again. So the first was our general presentation, and now we'll go into individual presentation. And this presentation, the taxonomy of this presentation has 2 subsections. And the 2 subsections are the benefits of meditating upon bodhicitta, and once bodhicitta, the 2 forms of bodhicitta have been generated, how one is to engage in the training.
도시다 담보 장주선이 표현 삼바들라 아니 남로라 sabject다 류슝셰바가 아니 류첸셰바세 다 담보를 류슝셰바들라 아니 sabject 니도아 슝셰바들라 sabject 디고봉시 겨두바 리버 담바가 장주선이 표현 개버셰바스 sabject 니도아
No. Then this first section, the benefits of meditating on bodhicitta, has 2 further subsections. The 2 subsections are abandoning negativities and the fittingness of practicing virtue. That's the first. And the second is an elaborate or more extensive explanation of the benefits of bodhicitta.
This one? Yeah, that didn't subject and was not Chanju send care, send the yield then share motion that send the motion.
For the first of the 2 subsections, abandoning negativity and the fittingness of practicing virtue, one should understand that the focus here is on the mental basis for the generation of bodhicitta.
Oh yes, that is Zawadidwar, Zawadilla Sendeshia, Zawadilla, Chidar Semu, Mona Tiruna, Lojul Gijila, not about the Sanye to Yalana, and then Jidin Son of Little Tangaju. Gavanian to Nila Tas at all the Tassende was.
And the root verse here is on page 32, verse 5. Just as on a dark night, black with clouds, the sudden lightning glares and all is clearly shown, likewise, rarely through the Buddha's power, virtuous thoughts rise, brief and transient, in the world.
Oh yeah, that the day is about that the same day this thing is not that the pedant and I need and thing is pedant and I need and to pay the other countries is not still come when you would be any 다 빼기 등으로와 아니 제만이 보이지 아니 된다고 생각해서
As for this verse, which is a description of the mental basis for bodhicitta, the mental support for bodhicitta, the meaning of that support, the significance of the support is conveyed metaphorically. And as metaphors operate, there's a vehicle for the metaphor, and then there's the actual meaning of the metaphor. So first comes the vehicle of the metaphor, and then the meaning.
그게 지들 지들 센스를 좀 님의 외매베이다 세모세. 다 문화스도 문배 나와서 다와다 까마게 외도 줄 매베이다 문화스. 아니 그냥 배 야가게 그러나 차와제베도 줄 지름지를 집어나보고 두서 tum는 예배 통하면 하게 지금 수고 차시도 통하면 지려 가야 통마도 되게 되지나 아니 나가는 로 두성도 단다 로 축으로 어디 로도 축 까마다 까마치 축고 있는 데 가서 좀 니링나 아니 나절다 수수 도고서 나가다 잘라 그 통구 요에는 되게 통구로 와서 어디나 신세로 배지선 대나 신세 아니 나랑도 그다 달에 나도 달에 나도 개발내 두들라스 아니 산지 대시로 산지 대시배 대시로 아니 산지 투지를 때네 아니 나라도 로제비 기지기를 아니 나라도 최체 그냥 최체 두야다 최두야 전두야다 되게 아니 두지 tundu지 배다 두지 tundu다는 장기세 배다 두지는 이유 장기세는 뭐 살카시 3,300으로 와 두지는 tundu지 되지 전부지 요구를 했어 지금 소놈을 당가 정수도 많아들었다 소놈 사이 두지는 되게 가만 뒤로지만도 영화를 세게 배수 빼도 되는 중요해서 그 사람
죄송.
마세요 참아서
So just the verse begins with the vehicle of the metaphor, just as on a dark night, black with clouds. The darkness of night is dark because the sun's light is absent. Black with clouds. Black with clouds describes a sky without even moonlight or starlight. The sudden lightning glares, a flash of lightning which lasts only a moment. We see for a moment flicker and illuminate what's around us, whether it's the path we mean to travel or what we have, our things around us, whatever it is. For that, during that flash, it's visible to us. So in this way, and here comes the meaning of the metaphor. Likewise, rarely, through the Buddha's power, virtuous thoughts rise, brief and transient in the world. Brief and transient, momentary like the flash of lightning. Comes a virtuous thought, and it's through the power of the Buddha. The virtuous thought is the occurrence to the mind of the value of the Dharma, such that at this moment, when we have merit enough for it to momentarily occur to us that the Dharma is important and significant, in that moment, we recognize that it is.
아니 가르치는데 말함들 왔어. 이때 잡아도 가르치는 잘했으나 이때 잡아도 말함들 다음에 또 비실어도 제어를 그다음 아주 다음에 또 비실어 위험하다 와. 그래서 다음에 또 비실어도 제어이자 세모스 나버레스. 다음 문화세디 아니 말함들다 그 가다다 다음에 또 비실어도 제어 맞세 아니 다음에 또 비실어도 더 들어선 고수 되고도 삼보도 공중을 얻어서 아니 매베이자 아니 문화세와 문화스라고지 아니 지금도 말함들 이 다음에도 비실어 매바도 태선 고수 매베 깨나 때네 아주 유티고 사네 아니 거기 눈에 한번 너무 용고야 이거저거 어디라 누름세 어디를 이제 아주 때 잘해서 그래서
죄송. And again, to expand the vehicle of the metaphor in the first line, just as on a dark night, the night is dark, the sun is absent. The absence of the sun may be likened to the absence of the wisdom realizing the absence of the self. That is absent, and that is the darkness we're in. A dark night, black with clouds. Black. It is black because not only is the wisdom realizing the emptiness of the inherent self absent, but so too is any wisdom that comes from further contemplation and meditation upon that, upon the absence of the inherent self. Such contemplation too is absent, and so the dark night is black. And it is black with clouds because lacking the wisdom realizing the absence of the self and the wisdom that arises from contemplation of that, we continually engage in non-virtuous activities, which plunges us again and again into samsara, and that is the way in which it is clouded.
sonam chegi gogo ta pe tilis ta yilo bila pe tani ngazula pe tuju tuju jila ani be che pa da pe da chi su che go samba ani chi nyame che go samba pe bom jago karina sam chogo wa bom jago sam chogo re ani su samde cha che go karina de lo de chu kegres and de yurin bu yo mares tiam ma bu ke yo mares da di pe di chane and then law to the better response. So, law to a better body.
Oh, and then in the second line, the sudden lightning glares and all is clearly shown. The sudden lightning glares, a glare of lightning, a flash of lightning is momentary, and in that moment, one's surroundings become visible. So like that, through the kindness of the Buddha, there's a flash, and in that illumination, in that momentary illumination, is like the occurrence to the mind of a virtuous thought, such as, I'll actually practice, I'll actually meditate now, I'll train, I will train, I will do prostrations. Intermittently, for a moment, such thoughts arise in us, but they aren't lasting and they don't occur very often. And this is likened to a flash of lightning on a cloudy night.
Sasha jogi tigwa migiwe ledi top chimbo mambo ani be nyuba chimbo o tinde yuba chila ani ko shuglo keze kwaya dire so
Then the third and fourth lines, likewise rarely through the Buddha's power virtuous thoughts rise, brief and transient in the world. And the sixth stanza begins, virtue thus is weak. Virtue thus is weak really is a short summary of the meaning of the preceding lines. The flash of lightning, the illumination is momentary. It's momentary because the virtue we have accumulated is not very potent. It isn't very powerful. All the virtue we've accumulated in our past isn't very forceful. It is just enough for a momentary insight. And this will set up a contrast with what follows, which is an accumulation of merit, a greater accumulation of merit that is more powerful, that has more potential, is more potent.
어이 제가 이 수수고 냐면 수수고 딱 간다 수수고 니마지기 삼로 니마지 주도니 잡지나 아니 랑이 딱 개와치죠 가서도 디고치죠 가서도 만 수수고 삼로 딱 신주치 장가잖아 아니 맞으기 개와치죠디 장가 유유열에 아니 거기 디고 미기를 내 사게디 아니 장가 빼망고 열었어 주주 장가 되냐 장가 열어 제가 그 까마치가 있네 그 디고 사이로 주주들 아들 이거 좀만 사토야 단 개회 처리 아니 맞아도 곰내가 이제 용어이 물어왔어 그다음 수주기 니만이만 나는 삼로 땅에 있나야 내가 난 단다 시합을 다시 열해서
Now, if we think about our own behavior, our own practice, in 24 hours, if we actually analyze how we use our time, look at what we do in those 24 hours, if we really analyze it, we will likely find that we engage in constructive activities less and counterproductive, destructive activities more often. If we just look at the 24 hours and actually look at our day to really see how we use our time and are honest and find out just how it breaks down, it will likely be that it's the constructive activities just take up a bit of time, and then the counterproductive, destructive activities are predominant.
힙배도 사진은 말아서 수술을 미지기 계속 많이 보지 계속 누구를 나고 요번에는 계속 많이 보지 나고 요번에는 아니 미지 근데 나고도 다 슬라스나 아니 수술 남자들 롱나진 와 수일라서 어디라서 그때 아니 그래서 처방 지기로 와 먼저 빼는 저랑 그래서 누구를 나게는 아니 라미에 수래 거들라서 그들라고 로봇도 14번째 되기도 왔어 나 먼저 주중 모두 깨지냐 뭐지도 야가지 시에 보면은 아니 들어가서 그만 지금도 왔어 난 지난신 아도 빼나 수술 내버지 두번에 봐 마스크를 두번으로 전에 먼저 두번에 수술도 소개를 시도는 먼저 항상 다 콜레에서 다 보고 소개를 되게 코스 다문에 세야 구멍도 땅 아니 세도 뭐 숙식부 봤세 세타도 시사도 다 근데 숙식부 지기도 왔어 그래서 이거 제일 먼저 고배원이 또 좋아지 무시지 6번 참고 또 열어와 제가 예와 이거 제일 또체 예와다 예와 제일 또 충을 예외지지 아니 먼저 예와 제게도 또 춘주마도 매 정을 주수요 말했어 좋아요는 무시요 말 무시는 좋요 말 어디에 매다 먼저 예와 또 충을 이거 또체 열어서
Now, just for an example, to illustrate the preponderance of counterproductive or negative behaviors in a day, and why it actually is that way for us, just take your actual response to when you hear that someone has said something mean to someone else, someone's reporting something to you. You'll say, oh, this person said that, huh? Oh, who was he with? And why did he say that? What was that all about? You really will analyze the situation and be invested in that, and become invested and involved and perturbed yourself. But then if you hear someone treated me real decently, you hear someone say that, and you're less likely to want to drill in and find out what that's all about. It's a matter of indifference to you, really. Or take, for example, when a mosquito comes and it lands, it's about to land on you, all at once you say, here comes a mosquito, it's going to bite me, but I'm not going to let it, I'll kill it. And then when you actually slap it and you kill it, then you look to see that it is good and dead. You're invested in the whole thing. You're really invested from the beginning in preparation, and then as you're killing it, and then afterwards you want to find out that it's dead, that you've finished what you planned. And so you're invested in the beginning, the middle, and in the end. And it's because of the way that we really are invested in such destructive activities in the beginning, middle, and the end in that way that we're accustomed to thinking that way. So it is virtuous actions we're not as invested in the beginning, middle, and in the way that we're invested in negative actions in the beginning, middle, and the end.
뭐도지? 다음은 개와또 체 가지는 고거래. 이것도 체어 가지는 고거 말에 다 좋아리기로 와 좋아서 많이나. 아니 개와또 체에 매베이나 맞아. 대화 우리가 규마상으로 와. 이것도 체 여바이는 거랑식 고 스톱 체 되게 숙체 온케네. 아니 맞아 여기야 손을 막 도스코라게 내가 손을 내서 또 스케줄로 와서 제단다 가제 랑기 대화 또 랑기 동의니가 동의 매번 써야 돼 수수는 게 차대요 대화 두개 수수는 게 차대요 와서 근데 이도 아니 내 디고도 또 친구 사샤는 나 라마에 거 디고도 숙케지는 나도 손을 깨야 되는데 코알 깨야 돼 디네가 손을 깨 동의 용거 되거든 아니 수수 두가 차대요 다 개와도 또 친구 룹샤고에는 안티네 데돌이 끼고 데돌네 답에 고마는 또는 데리시는 대화는 딱 근데 용약이 아니 개와도 채와도 동의 디고도 채 이가가 수수 냠면 풍사를 비가나 풍고를 해서 말이지.
And then if you ask why then should I be concerned to make dominant or preponderant virtue instead of non-virtue, or constructive actions instead of destructive actions? Why be invested in that? And it's because with a preponderance of destructive actions, one is powerless but to take rebirth again and again in lower realms and experience the sufferings and the dissatisfactions of unfortunate rebirths. If one instead is invested in constructive actions, virtuous actions, then a prospect of a fortunate rebirth may be. And ultimately the responsibility then for suffering, experiencing dissatisfaction, or experiencing contentment and satisfactions is one's own. And a proper investment in constructive action will come from an awareness, an acknowledgement that destructive action leads to unfortunate rebirths in lower realms with all of the dissatisfactions and sufferings that go along with that. And what follows from virtuous action, from constructive action, is a fortunate rebirth and the possibility of liberation and ever-increasing prospect of liberation and fortunate rebirths.
뭐야, 제가 다만도 전다 도도 가는 몇몇 봉사를 더 보는스나 개와도 또 전부 이거도 또 충을 땅 구여와 어예 딱이 땅에 전다가 아니 내가 네 봉야 전다가 딱 약쇼 가래서나 장주생이 냐면 제가 중앙이나 아니 내일 하고토는 개와 친구 사두고래 이거 친구 뭐좀 두고래 제가 장주생을 넣어야게 이제 즉 내가 두서를 어디를 해서
And so then when one realizes that what they must do is make a concerted effort to engage in constructive action and make a concerted effort to avoid counterproductive, destructive action, when one recognizes that and commits oneself to doing just that, then one will want to know what the best means, the supreme means, the most effective way to do that is. And the most effective way is through the cultivation of bodhicitta. Through the cultivation of bodhicitta, one spontaneously, effortlessly, easily accumulates virtue, and also naturally and powerfully eliminates and purifies non-virtue.
장주 쌤이 토는 장면 냐면 제발이나 아니 딱 유아메베 개와스는다 아니 따토베 개와스 템토베 개와스 유아메베 템보베 개와스 지교디 아니 조야메바 누가 친구 유아메바 템도 투바데 용하게 개와디 누구 위에나 다 장주 쌤아 장주 준주를 라면 제세 장주 쌤도 제발 라면이나 아니 개와 또 친구 개와 또 준주 차야 따라와 체쇼도 요래서
Then when one generates bodhicitta, when one cultivates it, one is cultivating the very cause for contentment and satisfactions that are lasting and truly stable and inexhaustible, the very best cause for lasting contentment. That is what the supreme method of bodhicitta makes possible. And it is the best means for generating virtue, and it is the best means for purifying non-virtue.
Oh yeah, that didn't change something. Any that the people the shabby is and it's a change something. Pay sheba the any change something. Jawa Tata Kutuba, this Jama, this Jama policy check. Any they drink that around the church, Tenjo Milugi, and Jo Devaki, Jova Chu, and Digala Kibusungi Langi Motor, and Digala Chanju Semgi, and Jawa Top Chemo Sayaka, and the got to Pajum Tuya check, you got the Chanju Sema Ebe, want to share about whatever the Japsa is. And then the network
with this mention of bodhicitta and the benefits of bodhicitta, we will in the class or this portion of the class. It's a description of the way in which the means for engaging in virtue, the best of means is bodhicitta. And we will explain this in more detail next week. Today, we touched on the 8 leisures and the 10 endowments, and also introduced the beings or individuals of 3 different capacities, and also spoke briefly on the benefits of bodhicitta and the way in which it accumulates, it brings about virtue and helps to stamp out non-virtue. That was our topic today, and so we'll stop here, and now it would be good if we had an exchange of question and answer.
In regards to, let's see, the cultivating of bodhicitta, but also the difference of non-virtue and virtue of destructive actions or behavior and constructive actions and behavior, and birth and rebirth. The idea of bardo, within one lifetime, many bardos, many cycles of life, death, and rebirth in one's actions in one life, bardos of one life. Is there a way to approach that? Because bardo can be seen not as life and death in and of itself, but many cycles of life, death, and rebirth, one's actions and fruitive results. Many bardos, in other words, many times to have change or life, death, and rebirth in one physical lifetime. So how might one approach that?
장축기 쌤 캡에 페이온다. 아니 장축기 쌤 캡네 아니 그래서 개와 아니 타다 줍토바다. 아니 미개와 티 좀토바. 디단 저에 케체옌. 그래서나 티 지단이 규단 제부 기케저와. 다 티앙요레 타니에 야마네 식디요레 바르도 치당 아토 고알라 아니 시네 바르도라 인조여레 드네 아니 바르도 조네 아니 케와 아니 사르치 맹게레 아니 케와 나치기 케저레 이나야 고와신다 양 요레 데소소 미세 칙라야 아니 바르도 장메파 샥초그레 Penani Gyusarne, Gyudi Mamimim Bardu, the Mamimim Bardu Nekap Delaya, 아니 bardo labchogre samgi ro gansin di chitani bardo 그래서 신에 되는 신에 bardo la drona 소소기 dekpeledan gewele denzogi njebu minrogre bardola minrogre yana mitsa chilaya ani bardogi nekap nangshin ani gewele ki njebu megi nekap tendre yang yore bardo mambo yoba nangshin 어디 제자니 samo delaya 간데 라 간데 samode
신이 인지 봐도 다고도 신의 시세가 널 봐도 요마를 시세 그래서 신이 산이 고만 도중에 시세문도 되는 데로라 아니 이마 녀월의 개인은 봐도 요마 아니야 수판 수면 개인이나 봐도 요마
voilà
수면
voilà ça
수면의 개인이지 녀월 개인이지 아니 그게 장주초도 쌤 깨네 아니 그게다 내를 깨는 거죠 대줄라 벌도 요 말이지 무직돼서 다시네 벌도 진이 저러와 다 벌도 진이 되는 벌도 되고 벌도 되는 다 그런 세세로 망부였다 다이는 벌도 때는 대부분도 지고 열었으면 열어서 벌도 되나 다시도 그것도 보여 벌도 되는 치용다 남도 밖에 열어와 산이 그것도 열어와 벌도 진이 야매체는 야 남도 밖에 계속 깨 먹어 야 깨를 이차서 다들 저 이거 이차서 다들 벌도들이 내 가서 요어서 요어서 벌도 때문에 산지 숨트 수수기 프로그램들 체내야 네 예송 깨야 요어당 얘들 깨야 요어서
carriles
예송이 벌도 깨되나 콜레 경험도 주네
어르
내를 깨고 요어서
알아
어디에 요어서 아니 벌도 망골라네 벌도 지난 대시 약간 벌도 세다 부다가 개발수로 시작하는데 망고 요어서 시작하고 어디 시리들이
맞습니다. So regarding bardo generally, bardo, first there are circumstances where there's no passage through bardo at all. One may directly achieve the state of Buddhahood without passing through bardo. One may take an immediate rebirth in a hell realm without passing through a bardo, with no bardo experience. And one may have generated supreme bodhicitta and take rebirth in a fortunate realm without bardo experience. So that's one circumstance, one sort of circumstance. Another is along the lines of what you described, where the bardo is a place, a moment where there is a manifestation of the ripening of karma, and it may manifest in its ripening as the attainment of arhatship in the bardo, the attainment of the state of no returner in the bardo, the achievement of the Buddha ground in the bardo. Those are all moments where realization is generated, ripens in the bardo. So those are other. That too, those two are circumstances of the bardo. And furthermore, in the bardo, there is the possibility for one, once they've taken a bardo manifestation for one destined for a lower realm, that is a bardo of the lower realms, that may appear to a bardo being, and then within that bardo there may ripen virtue such that bardo state transforms into the bardo state of an individual on their way to a fortunate realm. So a fortunate realm bardo. Now those are just descriptions of the sort of bardo itself, generally speaking.
就是跑到不能做密西的，我说南国做密西的建筑做的跑，西湖什么的军事什么的吧，对，可是呢，可能军事业，就是唐国的跑到的可能俺们这修建的话，俺们这就买些等等，这些你把的跑到的那个来啥，年松建议跑到那年松建模呀，或者当晚一个当个长久生活的这个。교육이 아니야 대로를 깨요 근데 답시 된다라 아니 된지 되는 수나 녹수식이 어려서
And there is a well-known practice of observing the 7 weeks of the bardo for a deceased person. And those 7 weeks, that 7-week practice is undertaken by students or disciples or people associated with the person who has passed away. And the purpose is to reduce the fear that the bardo being experiences in the bardo, and for that bardo being to be engaging in virtuous activity that will prevent a fall into a lower realm. And so during that time, through the 7-week observation of bardo, the deceased may meditate on emptiness or bodhicitta, be exposed to it through these practices. And so there's this custom too.
I was moved by the description of our seeing through a negative thing. And are not being invested in seeing something through that is a good thing that we're doing, not being as invested, particularly in like finishing that good thing that we said we were going to do. And I'm wondering if Geshe-la could please give us some advice on how to develop the same level of automatic interest in seeing through all the way. Like when we're hearing bad news, we listen in and we hear negativity, we listen in. How do we develop that same force of, it's almost like automatic to listen all the way through, to finish the good thing, to get all the way through the end of the good thing.
Yeah.
계시기 죽숨 상회 그거는 죽숨 아니 상회 아니 딕벨레 사예기 검시 아니 숙전부 요래 나절라 계시기 두숨 내가 심구탭송 오늘레스 아니 삼로데 코르송 계시기 아니 숨어대기 딱 심구탭송 아니 지당 맞죠 아니 개와 드롭도 잠발라 맞죠 아니 쭉 데라 아니 도낭 시라 저기 요 말에 야면은 무엇이 데라야 아니 뿌다고 아니 드롭이 도낭 저기 요 말에 이나야 미게웰레 드롭도 잠발라 랑싱기 아니 도낭 아니 랍기래 디베 베 그래서 네츠데 원에 항상이래 되게 독초 아니 게웰레 드롭도 잠발라 아니 무엇이 데라야 아니 쭉 데라야 아니 도낭 망섬 체네 아니 게와 드롭이야 드롭당 야만에 드롭이에게 간데스 드롭그레스 게시기 아니 맹아 잡어 아니 껴나로나 데 소소 아니 게벨 아니 드롭이라 아니 미게벨 드롭이야 낭신 도낭 아니 망섬 체에게 맹아 틱 나로나
아니 그 친구를 나도 당보 나도 꿀웅주도 시기도 꿀웅주에 그 최초의 당보 모두 꿀웅도 약보지 거래서 꿀웅도 약보지 여바이나 아니 꿀웅도 슈치는 무시도 야고 거래서 아니 무시도 야고 중소는 안에 나가 개와디 그래서 개와 간데 친구 사이나 주주 사이나 남상 네 모아게 생거래서 이 모아게 마스바이나 네 니마치 콘로 매우 소체가 모아게 심바이나 아니 콘로 좀 두고 말와 제가 그 숨겨 지도로 와 직제 나 단단 답신 이번 가르치는 것도 준죽 시기 외에도 장죽 쌤 개침부 이거 시야가 장죽 쌤이 아니 장난 개와가 장난 두고 이어가다 네가 세 두고 이어가디 아니 나도 꾸농 장죽 쌤 장사도 꾸농 죽침부 뭐라 라시게 내비로 와 디기토네 아니 개와 배떡 친구 사투야 이거 장죽 쌤 거랑 얘네가 네가 해서 이것도 자서 맞아 아니 순간에 수수 공부를 사실 나도 계산하는 이거 당연히 시험봐 나도 그 단다가 쌤이 단다보다 나도 그 저거도 이모도 차대요 봐. 딱 갈래 이모도 봐봐 되는데 장육선도 참아도 인지도 쌤다. 교류도 쉽도. 어디 지도에 아니 숨바들에서. 다시 되게 요라니야. 다시 수술라마 계획신이나 대바 체제는 배도가 묘기야가 그 망고여서 대사이니 만들어 우리나라 막 정글에서
This question is really, really important. This is a great question. And as I've mentioned again and again, adjustment in the very beginning, adjusting one's motivation, setting one's mental attitude, the motivation is crucial, is vital. If the intention in the beginning is the commitment behind the intention in the beginning is sincere and powerful, then naturally the execution of whatever virtuous action it is, the seeing through of the activity will come naturally from the investment in the intention which sets it off in the beginning. And so whether it's a virtue big or small, the dedication in the beginning, rather the intention in the beginning, will make the execution very automatic and natural. And then in the end, if we dedicate the merit of that action and actively dedicate it, then that is sort of clinching the virtue and value of the action so that it isn't lost anywhere, so that anger cannot destroy it, so that virtue remains. And so it's clinched by an actual practice of dedication after the action. Now that's just the first means. Now another way to increase one's virtuous practice is to, just as we've been doing for the past several weeks, contemplate bodhicitta earnestly, the benefits of bodhicitta, the way in which virtue follows from generating bodhicitta, the way in which non-virtue is naturally avoids non-virtuous action through the power of the cultivation of bodhicitta. Simply returning to the benefits of bodhicitta and the power of bodhicitta will make firm one's commitment to bodhicitta. And then a third piece of advice is to actually meditate upon this, to actually to think this through, think about how it is until now. Our closest friends have been, so to speak, the mental afflictions. We've held them close. They've been close to us. And now is the time to put them at arm's distance ourselves from them and come close, draw in bodhicitta and compassion, and to just change that relationship. And so these are means for this. And then also there are stories, of course, and it's very powerful the way in which generating faith in one's spiritual mentor can effectively help in this way too. So.
What do you mean by friends? Not literal or literal or
that yeah, the duksum di ani chopo nanshin ani nyar de asra the ngone chopo tinde chopo ngone rebe yamen chopo nanshin rebe
chopo nanshin mes tanda manju ge sem chopo di kare deja shina temu sumdu ko nyamdo de de ta 다 콘도 저거 누가 들어와 콘도 가도 있는 셈들 먼저 쌤들이 바자 동자샤 아니 바자 되게 오는 먼저였다 나야 이거 시에 이거 아니 개 이거 아니 베끼 보면 마찬가지니 강아 콘도스 무서워 와 콘도 바자 되게 레 쇠다 쇠다는 여기 동해님이 뭐지로 와유 유모도 손제 되고 동해제 다 네가도 가르쳐서 쌤들 코도님도 마샤바친 수 아니 잠바다 닝제다 자주 쌤들 그래서 냠도 수 샤와이나 그 저거 야가 되는데 그 가르치래 대화적으로 와. 그 가서 그 쌤이 계획 줬다는 거. 뭐 나는 대화 영화야. 뭐도 동네 영화야. 말왔어. 이거 하나도 빼도 무슨 미프로고야 오만고이나 맞아. 거기는 기본적으로 와. 그거 두자만 보이나 거기는 땅에서 집어지게 하려서.
So what I mean by friends is that in our minds we've been under the influence of the negative mental afflictions. They've been close the way we're close to friends. So the friends for our mind are these mental afflictions, and the mental afflictions make a habit of mind of engaging in non-virtue. So the mental afflictions are like bad friends that tend to steer us in counterproductive directions, because from the habits that the mental afflictions create in the mind come only dissatisfaction and suffering. Now, if one were to oust those for friends and take in better true friends of bodhicitta and love and compassion, then those, just as true friends always steer us towards constructive, positive action, those mental attitudes will direct the mind in a positive direction, and in the future we can experience satisfaction and contentment. So it's like when we're with good friends, we're steered in a positive direction. When we're surrounded by negative and mean-spirited people, then we're steered in a bad direction.
근데 이모 되자는 건 맞지지로 세단 공부 경우를 아니 되자가 아니 세단 때문에는 미식 뭔가 경우로 생각 뭔가 제가 때문에 거기 내가 계획해서 뭐라 공부 세단 경우를 아니 수술을 얘기해 하는 자도 제주로 되자 온 경우로 이다시 잡아다 얘기를 잡아기 아니 랑 생기 동에 세워다 랑이 동에 시에다가 시에는 보내려고 맞이 잡아가 지루와 아니 시에는 껴버 잡아도 인지 지루와 아니 장주 쌤은 오늘 이 나간다 고유가 잠어서 지금 고치 지루하잖아 고조가 비주가 수수비 염용부터 나간다 잠어서 고야지 레서
Now when there are the mental afflictions, the mental affliction of ignorance itself leads to a diluted engagement with things. And when we are under the sway of attachment, then we become covetous and jealous of others when others have what we want. And when we are angry, then we become violent and aggressive. And so these mental afflictions prime our minds to behave in these ways. Whereas when bodhicitta and love and compassion are meditated upon, the mind is primed to behave in constructive ways. One is committed to the well-being of others. One's compassion is the desire to see to it that others don't experience suffering. Love is the commitment to seeing others content and happy. And so from these come positive actions.
다 장주고 쌤들이 난지기 정부여서 싸워. 그게 싸워도 고가로 싸워도 핑거도 생기 싸워도 따르시는 신경 다 물어. 지나시 장주고 쌤들이 그게 난지 싸워대다. 아니 내가 딱 그래. 난지 싸워대 막감도 아니 니모지게 그런 매워지 아니 동네 매워차 싸워도 계속 정주성 계속 싸워요서디 마디들 계속 근데 이 싸워도 누구 요이다 되게네 완전 정주성 계속 보이거든. 도지 근데 그 생의 요한가 봐니다. 뭐 막고는 요소.
Now, in short, just to get to the heart of the matter, the root of the mental afflictions is self-grasping. So the mind that is absorbed in self-grasping naturally continues to generate the mental afflictions and desire and all the rest. Whereas bodhicitta actively desiccates or incinerates the seed of those mental afflictions. It is the actual desiccation and deracination, the uprooting of self-grasping. And so when that seed is eliminated, then all of the suffering that ensues too is eliminated. And so this process in which self-grasping is eradicated by bodhicitta is the topic of the text that will come, sequentially as we progress.
아니 꼴다 최셰바다 님바 또 저한테 집에 개월들 때네 아니 배다 더블은 디나미다 매암다 뭐 모두 쉬워다 아니 수수도 셈나게 아니 직선은 강에 있는 쉬워다 아니 배 대화 자주 셈도 비는 배 대화도 유도 토바들이 돌아 너는 재면은 너는 동의인 소리.
Okay, and now there has been instruction and listening to the Buddha Dharma describing bodhicitta and the virtue and merit of this activity, this shared activity, joint activity of ours. May we dedicate it all to bringing an end to violent conflict in the world and to sickness and the pandemic, and for each of us the mental hardship that we may be experiencing, that instead of dissatisfaction and discontents, we quickly find satisfaction and lasting contentment. So to these ends, we dedicate these virtues so we can recite our prayers, closing prayers. Page 12. From my two collections, vast as space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my love, Manjushri. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings. With the points of the path as I have discernment, may I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddha. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dāgī jīnyē sāmbē yewādi dēdāṃ rūvā guna gāmbē jebā jēsū lōsāṃ rābāyī tēmbē nyevā lēndū sēchēshū kārē rāvē kōvē shīngāmbē rēnāṃ devā mālū jōmē jērē sīvāṃ dīndīṃ yāsū Shabbe Siddhi Bhavantu Deyoji Shabbe Bhavo Jeda Gimbana Kundu Zambo Deyam Dejinde Tera Gunye Jesu Daloji Geva Jeda Kanje Rabuma Uzu Chebe Geva Kanje Moa Gamba Chogu Mabani Dagi Sawa Sambo Chushe Ratu Moa Senjo Lembo Se Maje Kana Yewa Nyamba Mebaya Kone Gondu Bewa Shu.
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful civilizations and governments. Please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantavakra realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these virtues with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious Gaskon ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dukshinam Geshe-la.